how did you go from dating apps to construction? I feel like that is quite a polar opposite. Not opposite, maybe, but quite a big difference.
At the end of 2021, when I stepped away from Curtin, I did go to join my dad. My dad has a business on Long Island within construction space, right? He's an architect and an owner's rep. So he works with projects from, drawings all the way through to ground up. And I spent some time in his back office, and genuinely, it wasn't more than me being there for 3 days before I was like, this is broken and I need to fix this, right?
What are your tricks for hiring? How will you go about that?
We all sit in our New York City office, right? And so it's balancing skill with hunger and excitement and drive to tackle a big idea at the seed stage, mixed with how do they work with others, right? We're together a lot of hours a week, right? Most hours of the week. And so you want to make it an environment where everyone wants to hang out and have lunches and huddle in on late nights and hit that customer deliverable by the midnight deadline. Like, there are a lot of it.
Why was it tough at the early stage of fundraising?
We are a construction payroll platform. I had just come off of a video dating app, and my co-founder was leaving her software engineering position at LinkedIn, which she was at for 9 years. And so, yes, she was a brilliant engineer, but she was building like enterprise tooling and software, right? To jump into construction payroll, like when you look at us, right, I think that people needed to see a little bit more of what we could do before just, jumping in.
How would you advise yourself if you could go back in time? What would you do differently?
It's funny. My answer back is like, at which point? Because I think there have been so many moments where I wish I took a little bit of a step. I don't know if we would have done anything differently in that period. As I was pitching for my life, and I literally mean it, I pitched 149 times. I got 149 no's. I got 1 yes, and it was Y Combinator. And it was the day after I called my mom and said, I think I have to give up.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks and Bytes podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode.
This episode is brought to you by Build Vision, transforming construction supply chain by bringing contractors, manufacturers, and stakeholders onto a single software platform. Visit buildvision.io to find out more.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
Okay, so we dive on in then. Martin, you want to go with the question numero uno?
Yes, Anna, so tell us a little bit about you. So you were a co-founder of previously of a startup called Curtin, video first dating app. Tell us, how did you get there and what happened after?
Yeah. So I'm from New York originally. After I went to school in the Midwest, I started my career in corporate America. I worked at Marriott International and loved it, right? I was a total corporate girly, reaping all of the benefits of these big companies. At around 26, 27, really a year or two before COVID, I started getting the itch to build something on my own. I think I started getting really frustrated that any job at Marriott would take 2 years from start to completion. I was definitely hungrier and wanting to move things forward. And so at around a similar time, I had met who would then become my then co-founder. And he was starting to toy with the idea of the concept of video dating, right? And this is the year like 2018. So it's early. It's TikTok is on the rise in Asia. It's still known as Musical.ly at the time, and it's starting to explode, right? And at the same time, we're living in New York City. Our dating lives are dumpster fires, right? Every time you go out on a date, you realize you've been semi-catfished by inaccurate photos. And both Brendan and I were like, there's an opportunity here to bring this concept of video, which is exploding, into dating. So that was my first company. It's called Curtain. It was a video dating app. Imagine like TikTok and Hinge if they had a baby. And we had an amazing, really like all the highs and lows of a first founder journey over the course of 3 years, and built that and grew that until the end of 2021.
Okay, and what happened with it? Did you sell it or something else?
So we didn't sell. We were, the odds were really stacked against us in that we grew to 60,000 users in the middle of a global pandemic. At the same time that our, bootstrapped / we had raised at that point $1 million from Sam Altman of OpenAI and Joel Simkai, the founder of Grindr. We had pushed and pushed and pushed through COVID to get to the user base that we had gotten. And at the same time, the bigger players in the space started realizing, with COVID, maybe video is the future. So they all went out and raised a ton of money to invest in video. That really blocked us from any ability to raise again. And so unfortunately, we ran it all the way as long as we could until we were in the red, right? Until it was like, okay, I think we have to shut this down and make a really difficult decision.
Is there any lessons for you?
Definitely tried the acquire conversations and all of that, but.
Is there any lessons from you from this particular experience that maybe you were like, I don't know, too late or something was too slow? Like, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's actually funny. I think we were actually like maybe slightly too early, if anything, in terms of like video adoption and reception to video across multiple different demographics. But I think my biggest learning was not having a technical co-founder on the founding team. For me, that was 100% the takeaway I took with me to trade, which was that you need to have that engineering mind on the founding team and their willingness to make the quick updates, jump in when they need to, not wait a full weekend for a really persistent bug because an offshore team isn't working, right? And so like you have this, like, I remember there was this one acute event that we were throwing in Miami, and we were expecting like 5,000 people. And there was this like really core onboarding bug that could have been like, triaged in a few minutes if we had just a technical co-founder at the event with us. And, it persisted and it caused ripple effects, right? And it's like those little things that stay with you for a really long time of like, how could I have done this differently in the moment?
Very good lesson. I like it. So how did you go from dating apps to construction? I feel like that is quite a polar opposite. Not opposite, maybe, but quite a big difference.
Yeah, it's such a fair question. It's probably everyone's first question to me.
Hey, why didn't you build dating for the trades?
I think there's probably a market for it. So it's not too late. Like, you never know what I'll pull up my sleeve. But really what happened was at the end of 2021, when I stepped away from Curtain, I did go to join my dad. My dad has a business on Long Island within construction space, right? He's an architect and an owner's rep. So he works with projects from, drawings all the way through to ground up. And I spent some time in his back office, and genuinely, it wasn't more than me being there for 3 days before I was like, this is broken and I need to fix this, right? And I kept asking him, like, Dad, why is this like this? Why is this like this? And he'd be like, I don't know, Anna, I'm flying blind, right? And I kept being like, why are you flying blind, right? And he'd be like, well, the data's over here and the data's over here, and like, I'll know how a project is doing 90 days later. And I just kind of looked at him and I said, don't you think that's like a little bit unacceptable? Like, doesn't it need to happen in more real time? And he was like, yeah, I would love for that software to exist, but it doesn't. And that was like an early, like, okay, I need to probe into this and start looking. And so I called up all of my construction uncles, right? I went back office to back office for 6 months, making sure I was excited enough about this idea to go build it for the next 10 plus years. and that the problem was not just in my dad's office, but more like systemic. And turns out it was. Every back office, equally fragmented, inefficient, and, so much opportunity to optimize it. And so that was like the earliest insight was, of all the things in the back office, like it's all disconnected. Payroll, probably the most acute issue, since that affects labor and people showing up the next day. And that's really how trade was born.
Interesting. Are there any correlations between, I feel like it's just such a stupid question, but I want to ask it anyway, between dating apps and apps for the trades?
Maybe also I will add to it, perhaps in terms of creating a product, maybe there is some correlation or the complete opposite things.
So I think it's all about network effects, right? I think to its core, it's like building a platform that the person to the right and left of you is also going to use and be pulled into in some way. And so I think that there's just natural like similarities in that way. And then I think ultimately just on a like macro level, both are so specific to a certain action a human is taking. Unlike Instagram, where you could like be in 15 different modes or flows throughout the day and you can just like doom scroll, right? Like it doesn't matter what you're doing. Like both dating and running payroll are two very like specific actions. And so to build those products, you need to just drill into the moments before, the moments after, the like motivators, the drivers of those people. Like why are they getting up to go to work? Like why are they like logging into a dating app, right? What's pulling them? What's underneath that? And then you like build software around it. It's like I think it's really cool to build such pointed, action-oriented products.
Okay, can you tell us like what are the I think there are 4 main pillars of trade: the payroll, scheduling, labor tracking, people management.
So why don't we just before we go there do the grammar explanation of trade?
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. So trade is a construction, payroll, and compliance software built for specialty contractors. So we are the all-in-one back office tool for the plumbers, electricians, demolition shops, and that's what we do all day long. So the platform consists of a few different feature sets. Everything is in service of running perfect payroll. So our time tracking and scheduling tools, our people management and HR software tools, our payroll, compliance, reporting, all of it fuels together in a single engine.
Very good. Shall we talk about perhaps each of those? You mentioned payroll and compliance as the 2 sort of key pillars, right? So
yes,
yeah, maybe we can dive through them. Silly question, but like, what is payroll for the trades?
Well, even within that question, the answer can be split, right? Are we talking union? Are we talking non-union? Right? Because I'll answer that differently. So I think the number one answer is payroll for the trades is incredibly complex.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
There are so many different configurations. First and foremost is the first split of like, is it union? Is it non-union? Is it private work? Is it federal work? Right? Because if it's federal work, it's going to come with the requirements of potentially prevailing wage, certified payroll, all of the really, really complex compliance reporting that these contractors are being, mandated to complete without really any formal like training or guides, right? It's kind of like someone somewhere sending an email saying it's time to fill this out, right? Especially with legislation like 485X, right? For like affordable housing and things like that. So there's so much complexity around payroll and compliance. So yeah, I'm kind of swirling because it opens up a can.
Right.
It's like It's not just like this person makes $40 an hour and they work 8 hours a day. It's like this person's eligible for overtime and double overtime, and they have to contribute to their year-to-date hours. And if they're in zone 1, their payroll calculation is going to be different than if they're in zone 2. And so what sets us apart from the ADPs and Paychecks of the world is that we are using our field software to calculate and generate our payroll calculations.
So everything associated with payroll can be sorted by trade within payroll section.
Yeah.
Really.
We will get into the customer and typical user of this, but just to help me understand this a little bit more. So these people that you are building the payroll solution for, are they the one-man bands? Are they like 10 plus employees? Like, where does it make most sense for them to use something like trade?
There's 2 use cases for trade, right? There's like the 50 person and under back off company, which is usually 1 or 2 people in the back office, at which point trade becomes their like absolute best friend, right? It's automating 40 to 50 hours a week in paper pushing, and allows them to start scaling faster, right? We have this amazing case study from the other week where a contractor who couldn't hire a back office staff because he was still growing, but wanted to onboard a bunch of people, started using trade. And with our onboarding tools, he went from 15 to 45 people in 40 days. And so it's tools like trade that help automate some of these really, like, onboarding a worker can take 10 to 15 hours, processing tax documents, bank documents, ID scanning, going back and forth with the worker, right? Having a tool that automates and streamlines it down to 5 minutes unlocks the back office team to take on more.
Tell us a bit about scheduling.
Yeah.
Also, sorry, Brian, this is the second time I've done this, but I think it's an important detail. How did you come to the conclusion that payroll was like the feature that you were gonna? Because I think based on the language that you're using, like payroll and compliance, payroll is the sort of like main thing a significant thing. Yeah, why that versus some of the other features which we will get into?
Payroll is so foundational to construction because construction is nothing if the men and women don't show up on Monday, right? It's like if payroll doesn't go out the door, which sometimes it doesn't, there's work can stop, right? And so not to mention it's so complex. And these bigger companies, these like cruise ships, like the ADPs of the world, they haven't ever zoned in like to take the time to understand the complexities of construction. And so you have these legacy 100-year-old family businesses, right, that are trying to like fit into the mold of a software that's not designed for them. It kept becoming like the most acute pain point. Like every conversation, it was always like, our payroll system is broken. It's wrong every single week. They always mess up the deductions. Like there's always a problem. And it's not just a problem in the back office. It affects our field, right? And so it was the most like tangible issue that I could put my hand on. And as I went deeper and deeper, it was like, oh, if I want to really crack payroll, I actually have to crack other things as well. I have to crack people management, right? And HR. I have to crack time and tracking and field management because that's the key data needed to run perfect payroll. And so like it wasn't as payroll is my wedge, 100%. It is the strongest part of this platform. It's the part we're most addicted to, right? Obsessed with, like trying to get it right. But we need so much more around it to make it work. And I think that's where other pointed solutions in this space have potentially like fallen short or haven't been able to reach a meaningful scale because they're still operating in a silo instead of thinking about payroll holistically.
A very good point.
Very good.
Okay. Should we go to scheduling? Or when you want to answer?
I'm going to cut you off again. No, go for it, Anna. Like maybe just briefly tell us what some of the other key features are, like scheduling, labor tracking, people management.
Yeah. So scheduling tools start in the back office and can be managed by back office associates, project managers, or field foreman, right? And so it really allows teams to allocate, deploy people onto calendars and shifts, and all of it is backed by automation. So workers are receiving instant pings and messages of changes to shifts or updates to where they need to go, just streamlining all of the frantic phone calls that happen at 5:30 in the morning, right? Of like, where am I supposed to be today? It's like, no need. Just open your trade app and your entire schedule is there, right? Or if you need to shoot a message to your foreman, you can also do that on the trade app, right? It just, instead of having to manage hundreds of texts and calls and inbound, it's all streamlined in the platform.
So it seems like the success of trade has come from combining all of the payroll, scheduling, and other features that were previously managed in isolated way. Would that be correct, or to say? It seems like the success of trade is because you managed to combine payroll, scheduling, labor tracking, people management into one platform, and each of the items talk to each other. Whereas previously you had each of these items as a separate point solution, and that's why it wasn't a perfect solution.
That's exactly right. Right, we're taking 6 to 8 systems and merging it into one in a way that hasn't been done before for construction, right? There are so many pointed solutions out there that do a great job at their one thing, but it adds to the data silo problem of pockets of data being all over the place. And then you get someone like my dad who's like, I'm flying blind, right? It keeps coming back to that concept of like, how can we marry everything together into one dashboard so you can actually run your business in real time?
Okay, no, it sounds good. I mean, I did have a question about how you got to the well, we explore construction technology, right? And I think that the most common customer is large general contractor, blah, 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 and why you picked the trades. But it sounds like it was just part of your journey, going from working with your dad and then spending, I think you said 6 months in the back offices of various of these companies, and then lo and behold, you had your ideal customer.
Yeah, I think the most complicated piece here is payroll for the field. And the people that pay the field are the specialty trade contractors. And so that is just where we continue to focus. Will there be opportunity to go upstream? Probably, but not today.
Yeah, so on the customers, you make a point about the field. So certainly how it works in the UK is you also have teams of guys that would be working perhaps more consumer. So they would go to someone's house and like fix a boiler, for example. Or you'll have like teams of, let's just use plumbers as we're on that example, where there'd be like 5 or 6 of them on a large project. Are you guys targeting, is there like a sort of line between consumer versus business customers? Yeah, maybe talk to that.
We're very much focused on commercial. I'd say a really good use case. I can give 2 examples, right? We have a pretty large scaffolding shop here in New York City where there's 40 active job sites a day with 20 to 30 guys going out together each day. That's a very solid use case for trade, right? 40 active sites, that's where the software is picking up different things throughout the city, right? And then it's centering itself into the back office and calculating those rates. So that's one example. And then there's the 1,000-person kind of shops that are working on the same space for 18 months and not moving, right? And those companies may not schedule shifts out, right? They may say to their guys, you know where you need to be for the next 18 months. And so the beauty of trade is it is this flexible platform. There is so much inflexibility with software. And I think that's always a major takeaway when I go to trade shows, that you can walk up to a Sage or a Viewpoint and, you know, ask them, can you support this? And the answer, instead of, and this is maybe just me being a startup girl, but the answer is always like, no, that we don't offer. Whereas for me, I'm always like, tell me more. Let me understand you a little bit more and I can see what we can do, right? And there's just it's a mindset. It's like, we want trade to be flexible for the 10-person company, the same as a 1,000-person company. And so some features may be more or less relevant to those people, but at least they have access to it in one system.
Yeah, it seemed to me like you are very focused, or you were, or you are very focused on the product discovery and customer discovery of their pain points. Can you tell us a little bit more about like your what were your strategies to figure out what their pain points are?
I think the only way to build something people want is to ask them, right? Like, I will be the first one to say, I've never worked in construction, right? Like, I've supported my dad, but have I ever been out in the field? No. And so it is my duty as a founder of a construction technology software to go out into the field and ask people what they want. And so in those 6 months early, and I still do it today, I'm in New York City, so I get to walk outside and walk to my left and walk onto the job site, right? You walk up to them and you ask them, like, how's it going? Like, what are you doing after work, right? Like, what matters to you? Like, how do you think about money? Like, is it like, seriously? And people are more willing to talk than you think, right? As long as you smile and sometimes bring donuts, it really does work. And so I think one of the things that I fixate on is building what people ask for instead of like building like a hunch that I've had. That's not like, I could have a good hunch. Maybe I have a hypothesis here and there that tracks, but why not just go right to the source?
Yeah, and I think that's again part of the success is that you didn't have experience in construction because you were not biased in any way. Really, you were figuring out problems as you entered the field, really, with your dad.
Yeah, and I didn't let one answer sway me, right? I spoke to hundreds of people and hundreds of data points to capture all of this. And I think not having that like hands-on experience allowed me to come in, as you just said, completely open-minded and like just taking the data at face value versus bringing in my own opinion.
Cool. Okay, Anna. So, is there anyone out there on the market doing something similar as you guys doing, or it's still very fragmented space?
I do think that there are some new entrants exploring the vertical SaaS space for construction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I see you're on a race with them.
I'm racing them. I say this all the time, but it really is me against me. There's going to be companies that pop up left and right. And I really saw this with my first startup, Curtain, where we had a very big splashy like TechCrunch piece, right? And then we were like, we're on top of the world. And then 2 days later, I'll never forget, like an article about this company called, I think it was Lolly, came up and it was like snack size, like video dating app launches, right? And I remember being like, what do you mean? And I like, neither of us worked, right? And so you can't look to your left, you can't look to your right. You have to look forward towards product market fit, listening to your customers, optimizing quickly. And this, especially construction, not so much dating, but this is a big enough market where there can be a few different winners.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I will ask this question now. It was for later, but as we speak about this, maybe what's your defensibility strategy for trade? How defensible is it against others?
That's my secret sauce. I don't know if I can share that.
It's Anna, right? As a founder.
I absolutely have the answer. I just don't know if I'm going to say it on air.
You don't have to. So we talk about how you guys generate revenue. What's like the charging structure? Those kind of things.
Yeah, we have a monthly subscription model based on the size of the workforce. We don't charge per head. We charge more in a bucket model.
Curious as to why you concluded that.
I mean, going back to just listening to my customers, like some months they have plus 10, some months they're down 4, some months it's up 20, some months it's down 50. And maybe in the future this will change, but in our first few years of operating, I didn't feel like it was worth anyone's time to be going backwards and, course correct, like changing the numbers and back billing, right? For that, I think it's so much easier, and contractors appreciate it so much to just get one number, lock into it, and then know that it can be like reliable and predictable each month. I think their frustrations with payrolls today, these larger systems, is they're constantly hit with hidden fees and charges. It's like they have their monthly fee, and then
Disgusting.
3 weeks later they receive another bill because they ran a random off cycle to fix a mistake that they ran, right? It's like it's all crazy. It makes me angry for them, like what they've had to put up with.
Yeah.
So what's the... Oh, sorry, Juan, you wanted to...
No, you go.
Geography. So you mentioned zoning and governmental work, non-governmental work. And when you were talking about this, I thought like, okay, that's US. That's a completely different market. In the UK, for example, in Europe, where I'm from, there's no such thing. So is you thinking about putting trade out there to outside of America or US, or that will be US US company?
I'm sure one day, yes. I think payroll is so specific, like country by country, state by state, like zip code to zip code, that there's so much for us to figure out in the US market alone first before we expand internationally.
Okay. Should we go on the fundraising path now? I suppose it'd be good to understand where you guys are, because I suppose that indicates where you are in the life cycle of a business too. So, do we say straight out of YC?
No, it's been a minute now.
Okay, cool. I don't mean like literally straight out. I mean like straight out.
Yes.
Straight out of Compton
yes.
kind of thing.
Got it.
Yeah. So maybe tell us about your fundraising journey, like where you are. Also, when you guys were founded, I don't think we discussed that.
Oh, so end of 21, middle of 22 is when I recruited Kara, who's my CTO and co-founder. So summer of 22 is what we can call the official start date, but that was after all of that validation had happened. So I was definitely already cracking away. But yeah, so fundraising, we had a tough time before Y Combinator, but when we got into the summer 23 batch, that's really when our fundraising journey took a turn. We were able to raise our initial round right after the program. We had raised $2.5 million from Bloomberg Beta, as well as Y Combinator, and a bunch of other VCs in the prop tech space. So that was the initial kind of momentum after that. And
so that was 23? That was like 1 year after founding, roughly?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Exactly. And then this year, we took an additional investment from Suffolk Technologies, who are now our lead investor.
Why was it tough at the early stage of fundraising?
If I'm honest with myself, if you looked at me on paper, I don't necessarily know that I had the founder market fit that is so needed at that pre-seed stage. I think, we are a construction payroll platform. I had just come off of a video dating app, and my co-founder was leaving her software engineering position at LinkedIn, which she was at for 9 years. And so, yes, she was a brilliant engineer, but she was building like enterprise tooling and software, right? To jump into construction payroll, like when you look at us, right, I think that people needed to see a little bit more of what we could do before just, jumping in. I also think that it was a misunderstood space, and even partly by me. And I think my pitch evolved over time, right? Like, I think I have to be critical of myself. I don't think I did the best job of selling my vision for what this could be 2 years ago. And I've had to come a long way and do a lot of learning to figure out, I can think about all these things, but what do people need to know, right? Like, what is the most streamlined, concise way to deliver what I'm trying to do?
That's a brilliant thing. So how would you advise yourself if you could go back in time what would you do differently? Or what advice would you give to someone in a similar position?
Yeah, it's funny. I my answer back is like, at which point? Because I think there have been so many moments where I like wish I took a little bit of a step. I don't know if we would have done anything differently in that period. We, like, as I was pitching for my life, and I literally mean it, I pitched 149 times. I got 149 no's. I got one yes, and it was Y Combinator. And it was the day after I called my mom and said, I think I have to give up.
Oh,
Like,
amazing.
I was done, right? Like, Kara was frantically coding, right? And I was selling, like my life depended on it. And I had this moment of being like, maybe this isn't meant for us. I am so sure that this platform needs to exist, but like maybe I'm missing something, right? And I'm so glad. It's like always when you're done, that when you push 5% further, truly, that's where the tide turns. And if I could tell any founder, it's like when you actually feel like you can't go like one more day, go 2 more days, and I promise you it'll pay off. And that has happened so many different points, right? It really comes down to just like grit and hunger.
Mm-hmm. You're always
Beautiful
free
lesson.
from gold, right? So
What
why
was
did,
one?
why did
Go on.
Bloomberg decide to invest in? And why did Y Combinator say yes?
Yeah. I mean, like when I pitch, I'm really, really passionate, right? I'm like, so, Y Combinator kind of came in on a slightly different premise. So when we pitched to YC, we were still like really focused on selling in construction payroll for same day pay, which will always be a part of our platform, but it's not the leading feature anymore. And I think they were really excited by, I mean, they've invested so much into vertical SaaS and payroll, right? Think about Rippling and Deal and Gusto. And so I think we came in with like an age-old concept with a little bit of a flair. 2 female founders, right? 0 founder market fit. Maybe slightly on me with a construction family, but like beyond that, I think they were like, wow, these girls think they've got something here. I think we just piqued their interest, to be honest, and we got lucky. I really will always maintain that was our first real lucky break. And then following that, Bloomberg's main thesis is the future of work, right? And I think when you really look at what I'm trying to do for construction and is try to completely rewire the subcontractor's operation, right? Everything from how his guys and girls show up every day and interact on site with each other and with their job, all the way through to how they get paid, the speed at which they get paid, right? Like that is the future of how construction will work. And I think that it resonated with Bloomberg really quickly.
What was the experience like with Y Combinator?
Amazing. A network that is unmatched. Obviously, we were able to fundraise within weeks of our demo day. And so compared to my experience before, where I was pitching for months with no yes, right? They tee it up for you, where you're put on this platform to share what you've done, what you've built, what your traction is. It really can't be matched, I don't think. And yeah, I mean, we walked out with lifelong friends. So I feel very grateful for it.
Have you got any thoughts on the differences between general investors and specialist investors like Suffolk or Technologies right now?
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have 2 major investors, one who is deeply industry knowledgeable and one who, understands construction, right, at the highest level, but may not have the day-to-day minutia. I lean on our investors for different things. I think having a strategic investor is pretty incredible, specifically because one of our earliest challenges is relationship building. And getting in the right rooms with the right people who will then refer you and make warm intros to the right people. And when you have a brand and a name like Suffolk behind you, it just softens most of those relationships, right? It's like there's a receptiveness to a software where there previously may not have been. I think one of the biggest learnings for me is contractors are really tired of getting phone calls from software companies. Like they have hired people in their back office to make sure they never get a phone call from a software company, right? So all of those numbers on Zoom info that like go to the main office, don't even bother calling because it's their job to intercept and make sure the subcontractor never hears from you. And so you have to figure out another way to break through, right? It's not going to be SDRs hitting the phones. We're past that, right? And I think I found a similar challenge with dating apps. It's like I built a dating app after the wave of dating apps. Like people were already tired of them, right? And so how do you break through that noise? How do you find alternate paths to get to your user? And I think you asked me before, like, where's the similarity? It's kind of that. It's like I was in two very cluttered spaces, right? A lot of noise, a lot of different software solutions. How do you stand out?
Okay. How much? So just to confirm, Anna, you now Suffolk's on board. Is this Series A now?
It wasn't Series A. I'd say it was a strategic seed.
Something.
What? I don't know. We didn't really put a name on it. It was a bit of a follow-on to our seed round, but for sure not our Series A.
How much was it?
It was a $2 million investment, so bringing our total raise to $4.5 million.
Okay, and where is the capital allocation
going?
Engineering. We are building a complex product here, and we need the best. So engineering, product, and then customer support.
Yeah. So with the Suffolk label, so my understanding with Suffolk would be that they would invest in companies. You mentioned the word strategic, which I suppose is an important detail, but with Suffolk, they do a range of investments, but as we're on talking strategic here, why is trade strategic to them? Are they not focused more on like I don't know, robots or project management software or progress tracking or prefabrication? Who else did we speak to? Man, prefabrication, delivery, tracking, those kind of things.
Yeah, and how do they solve right now the problems of payroll and all of this stuff?
Or did they invest in you because they just see a whooping return coming in like 10 years?
I think that they invest in companies that they can either benefit from or help in a major way. And I think trade is both. I think first, it's that they can help us in a major way. And I think as we then morph the product towards more self-performed GCs and developers and CMs, I think the benefit to Suffolk as a business changes. But I think today they have an incredible, massive network of specialty trade contractors, right, that touch all of their projects. And so I would say ability to help us expand, right, and them knowing so clearly from first-party data how massive this market is, right, and this opportunity is. I would imagine it was a combination of those two things.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you're going to hire lots of engineers and product people. How would you? What are your tricks for hiring? How will you go about that?
It's tough. It really is. It's probably one of the more challenging parts of Kara and my day, right? Is balancing. We all sit in our New York City office, right? And so it's balancing skill with hunger and excitement and drive to tackle a big idea at the seed stage, mixed with how do they work with others, right? We're together a lot of hours a week, right? Most hours of the week. And so you want to make it an environment where everyone wants to hang out and have lunches and huddle in on late nights and hit that customer deliverable by the midnight deadline. Like, there are a lot of, it's not a 1,000-person company, right? We're still very small. And so each person, each energy, each attitude, like, really contributes to the whole.
Are you guys remote, Anna, or you have an office?
We are fully in person in our office in New York City.
Intentional?
Why? What did?
Yeah.
Sorry. Are we interrupting each
We
other?
asked the same question. We asked the same question. Mine said why, and I was going to say, was it intentional? Which I suppose is the same thing.
1,000% intentional. The velocity at which teams move in person can't really be matched to remote teams, and I've run both, so that's my own data, right? Other people may have different opinions, and I completely respect that, but we're in such a critical stage where if a customer email comes in, like, it hits the success team and then is immediately triaged to the engineers in minutes, right? Getting us to like SLA resolutions in like under an hour, right? And it allows us to just optimize, resolve, test, learn, be in these moments together in a way where, like, sometimes people miss the Slack notification, right? And we can't really afford that at this stage.
Good answer. I would really love to go into go-to-market distribution growth, as I know that is your background too. So maybe we'll get some hacks here. Martin, how about you?
Just a second. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about product development and when in the product development you are thinking of putting all of this focus and resources. Like, what's the next thing you need to build?
Yeah. So this is the one pillar within trade that Kara and I actually overlap on. We always joke that Kara and I have no overlapping skills. She is like a brilliant software engineer, and I am very much on like the go-to-market, sales, brand, product side. But we share product, and the reason is that I'm getting the kind of ear to the ground insights from people at trade shows and conferences, from all of our sales calls. So I'm kind of anticipating the products and features that are going to be asked for. And then you have Kara, who is really hands-on with our current customers, right? And people that are using the platform. So it's our mixture together that formulates the roadmap. Then that's where the balance of like new feature builds versus like, we need to rip this out, completely break it, rebuild it, and start again. We've already completely scratched Payroll V1 and we're already up to Payroll V2, right? Like, nothing is precious. And I think as a founder, you need to be completely like open and willing to kind of burn it down and rebuild it if it's just genuinely not working. So, I mean, products we've invested a lot in, we will continue to invest in it. I think it's an evergreen work stream. We're never going to be done. So I think that's also like that's an exciting thing. There's always room.
Keep going. Okay. Where do you have most success when it comes to selling or getting in front of your customers?
There is truly nothing like a booth at a trade show or there's a few reasons here. Back to my earlier point of like, the space is crowded and people don't want to pick up the phone. You have to find people when they're willing to listen, especially when you're calling them to talk about payroll. And so if I were to call up any of my like construction uncles at 2 p.m. while they are dealing with a pipe exploding, a roof on fire, they would literally be like, Anna, lose my number, right? You have to find your customer when they're willing to listen to you. And without a doubt, that is always when they have brought themselves to an event where there are going to be booths. Because they are like, they know that I'm going to be there and they're ready to listen. And so it's like when you think about like the marketing kind of chart, right? There's like awareness, right? And then at the very bottom, there's like direct response. And so trade shows do both, right? We can have people walking by the booth all day and just reading trade, construction payroll, trade, construction payroll. And then you have the high intent buyers who are walking up and getting a real-time demo on an iPad, right? And so it goes full funnel at these shows. And those are usually like quickest to convert. It's really all about the state of mind that you catch them in.
What happens when they come to the booth? Do anything like a little bit hacky?
Honestly, no. I think I immediately tell them that like I built this for my dad, right? Like that is like kind of like the first way in, because I think there's so much power in construction specifically of understanding the family business, like understanding like the roots and the real reasons, and being able to be like, I have felt this problem. Like I understand what you do every day, right? So I kind of start there, maybe take a more of an emotional angle.
Yeah, by the way, I have a dad with a daughter, and if my daughter done that would hit me like very hard. I'd be like, sign me up.
I mean, it like that does work. I think it strikes a chord, and it's the same way when you're fundraising, right? It's like they tell you like your first few minutes, like become a human to them, right? Remove like the software salesy. I will never ever be like salesy. That is just not my MO, right? I recognize that some jobs require it, but that's never how I will approach growing this company, because that's not where it started, right? Like I'm not in it for the massive financial return. I'm in it for helping all the people I care about so deeply. And I think that like when you start there, people actually feel that difference. So that would be like my hack. Do we also give away like really cool trade Carhartt jackets? Absolutely. Like, absolutely.
Now
but
it's okay.
It's not, yeah, exactly. But it's not the thing I would lead with.
Yeah, let me know when you can come to one of your trade shows to get a jacket.
For some
I'll
freebies.
send you my 2025 calendar.
Who do you sell to? Who is the buyer? Who says yes? Who is the persona?
The CFO, the controller, the payroll admin. It really actually depends on the size of the company. So if it's a company with 50 or less people, I'm selling it right into the owner. But if it's a larger company, 300, 500, 800, 1,000, there's oftentimes a CFO, a controller who will pull the trigger.
So the one which is 1,000 people company, how does this process look like? If you can describe from first contact to them trying the demo, or perhaps onboarding them.
Yeah, so I had an introduction to the owner, and so it started there. And the owner, I think, once that he could grasp the platform, quickly pulled in the people from his team that would be directly responsible. And so then it becomes the CFO and the person that has run payroll for 40 years, right? And then you like it's a holistic. Everyone needs to have buy-in, but the sales cycle can move pretty quickly.
Are the CFOs looking at this from a like a cost saving aspect, or I guess it doesn't necessarily generate revenue, or maybe it does. I could misunderstand there. What CFOs assessing this a trade against?
At a large scale company, if you're collapsing 8 systems into trade plus your ERP, there's probably some significant cost savings there. And also like the people allocation to managing those platforms can oftentimes be reallocated towards revenue generating activities.
Very good. On the GTM question, did you try other things, Anna, when you come to the conclusion that trade shows were the best one, and maybe things that you did try, why they don't work? Sounds like you were maybe calling a few people as well to learn that.
I was gonna say, I think I already told you. Yeah, like for sure, cold calling, and it doesn't work, right? It's not there for me. Like to call and I've spoken to other specifically construction tech founders who are like, I have SDRs calling 100 to 120 people a day, and we're lucky if we get one meeting booked. And for me personally, I can't get behind those numbers. That's not a good enough return for me to be putting money into it. When I know that if 2 weeks of the month we have trade shows that will generate like hundreds of like acute leads that are going to close. Like that's just where I would rather spend our time. So I would say cold calling has been hard, but we've kind of sunsetted it. Trying to think what else. Associations are interesting too. Getting like tapping into existing networks, always smart.
Speaking of growth and scaling, trade show can be limiting because you always will have to be there. Like what other tactics for like exponential growth would you apply?
Getting back to my Marriott days, I think that there's a paid media angle at some point. I think one of the benefits of a trade show is that you've put yourself in front of them and then they can choose whether they interact with you. I think I have the same thesis with paid media, which is like, if I show you something that speaks exactly to what you do and you hit it, you're likely a high intent user, right? Like, I feel like there's an avenue there that we will explore when the time is right.
What about content?
So hard. I think about it all the time. It's just like, in what hour of the day? I feel like it's always the last thing on my to-do list, and it always gets like pushed, right? It's very, very hard. We do have like a lot of how-to guides and more like user docs. But I'm assuming you mean more
like
lifestyle.
content-led strategies, blogs, social media, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I post on LinkedIn every now and then, but I did have one person on the street of New York be like, "Are you the construction payroll girl?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "I don't post enough for that. I decline. Like,
Wow.
I'm not yeah, crazy."
That's pretty cool. Maybe you should change your like what's the word? Archetype?
Profile.
I don't know.
Archetype?
Yeah, you know when people have like they call themselves something. I don't know.
You don't think construction payroll girl is good?
Yeah, that's
awesome.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a tough question. I hope it is tough enough for you. What are the main skepticisms? I think I'm saying it correctly. When you sell to people,
Are you like, why you? Like, and are you the one to do it? I think there is inherent doubt with me running this company in a male-dominated industry, and I would be naive to think otherwise. I think that there is inherent doubt that I'm the right person for this, and I think that I faced that already on the venture side, right? Until I proved that wrong, and now I'm in the part of like proving my customers. I'm very aware of that. And I think I run at it head on and oftentimes make a joke about it right away or acknowledge instantly, right? Talk about like claiming authority in the space and why I deserve to be here. It's like leaning into, it's a real thing. Like this was for my dad, right? So it's like leaning into that, I think grounds people early on.
do they have any like skeptical thoughts on the product?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think once they see it, understand it, there's no skepticism.
Mm-hmm.
I think where they're skeptical is the first interaction with trade. They're like, "What do you mean it's all together?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean you tracked this?" You know, like they can't believe that we've built something so unique to them. And I think when especially when payroll admins end up getting into the platform, there is always a bit of like shock. Pleasant shock, right? Of just being like, can't believe. I have some amazing recorded calls of people seeing the platform and being like, no way, and like, so I think the initial skepticism is like, I don't believe that you've created something that's exactly for me because I've been sold a lie for so long, right? Like of these like big software giants claiming that they have a construction version that they absolutely don't have.
Doesn't happen. No. Okay. Go on, man.
Touching on Owen's previous question, I think he meant ROI, and is there? So you don't even have to show ROI, like a financial ROI, to your customers. Seems like, is that correct?
Not really. No. That I think in the sales cycle, we identify their software stack, right? And then we identify which parts of that stack would be eliminated. So I think that that's like part of the process. It's like we kind of walk them through where the consolidation is going to happen. And I'm always the first to say, like, if I'm ever adding a solution, I'll take myself out of the conversation, because that's counter to our mission as a company.
Yeah, very good, beautiful.
Anna, is there something that because of the nature of the customer, I actually wrote this question with the perhaps misconception that the user of your software is the actual trade people on site. Is that correct? The people on site are using it?
There's 3 platforms to trade. So there's the back office system, there's the foreman platform, and then there's the worker platform, and they all speak to each other.
Cool. So is there something that you need to consider when building for all of these 3 people? Like ease of use? I mean, that's kind of obvious, but I don't know, there's something perhaps a little bit more insider that you have learned since building trade that perhaps shocked you or along those lines?
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many apps don't come in multiple languages. I think one of our earliest unlocks was rolling out trade in 8 languages because, of course, right? Especially as we launch in like one of the most diverse markets in the world, New York, right? Like you have to, like, people will be confused if the app isn't in their language that they speak the most, right? Like it seems so silly, but yeah, I mean, the app is so light. There's not much on it. It's like three buttons, 3 actions. It's really designed to like push the day forward, but not interrupt the day. Does that make sense? Like it gives you the information you need to touch base with it, but you don't need to be on, like, it shouldn't block you from the work, right? It's all it's all in support of getting the work done in an efficient, timely way.
Okay.
I have one last question then. I know that you are you the founder maybe or a key member of the New York construction Texas? You could say, you know what I'm trying to say, but I don't know the exact name.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Dude, what?
Like the construction tech founder scene?
Yeah, I saw that you've done some posts on from like you and other founders that we have in our network as well.
Yeah.
Attend these dinners in New York.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on community and being connected with these people, and how much does it help you as a founder build what you're building?
I think any type of founder network is valuable, right? Like there's so much value to getting the builders and the movers and the shakers in the same room. I, alongside a few friends like Mike Powers from Build Vision, we started throwing these quarterly dinners for all of the New York City construction tech founders. And every quarter we're averaging 15 to 25 people that show up. And it's oftentimes like a slightly different configuration and crew each time. And it's just an opportunity for people to sit in the same room and talk about everything we just talked about. How are you pricing? What's your go-to-market? What are you like running up against, right? A lot of times there are unlocks that just require talking to someone who can walk in your shoes. And for me, as I said earlier, like in terms of like competition, like I am so focused on myself and trade. All I see are like peers that I can learn from, right? And I think more people need to have that attitude in general of like, we're all trying to just like move things forward and do great things. Like we can actually help each other more than the opposite. And so those scenarios unlock it. And there's such willingness and excitement from everyone. They end up going so late into the night because no one wants to leave. People just want to keep talking. And that's just like such a nice feeling. There's total like, misery loves company, right? Because in some days, like this is a really hard job. But we, I think, are all like in our own little pocket of this massive, massive industry. You can't really find another industry quite like construction that there can be truly 10 winners in every category.
Brilliant. Okay, Anna. And anything else?
I'm good.
Yeah, that was very good. Okay, Anna, thank you very much. And tell us where people can find out more about you and trade.
Yeah. So for trade, our website is buildtrade.com. You can schedule a demo there. You can see some product highlights, a run through of our feature set. To learn more about me and my co-founder, you can find us on LinkedIn, Anna Berger, Kara Kessler. I definitely post more than her. She's but
Hitting the keys.
she's exactly, she's on the keys. Exactly. So yeah, that's how you can find us. And feel free to shoot me an email too.
You didn't mention at your local trade show.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of posting like our 25 calendar somewhere online so that people can come say hi. And I can hand you a trade car jacket.
Ah, sounds awesome. Sold me. Cool. Thanks,
Thank you,
Anna.
Anna.
Thanks so much, guys.